In a strange land buried beneath endless sand, a lone porter was fighting desperately for his life. He barely managed to survive by seizing a narrow opening and stabbing the monster from the inside. When the creature finally collapsed, the porter struggled to his feet and caught his breath, relieved that he had managed to defeat a monster using his own strength for the first time. That brief moment of satisfaction was quickly shattered when an awakened individual called out to him, scolding him for standing around instead of doing his job. He was reminded that he was merely a porter and should be collecting monster drops, not resting. The awakened mocked him, asking whether he thought he could laze around all day doing nothing. The porter apologized repeatedly, lowering his head, only to hear them turn away while calling him useless, unawakened trash. The world had changed completely after the discovery of the abyss deep underground. The abyss was another dimension where monsters once believed to exist only in fantasy roamed freely. Not long after its discovery, people with awakened, transcendental powers began appearing. These individuals could enter the abyss, hunt monsters, and return alive. As a result, society's standards shifted. A person's value was no longer determined by effort, character, or perseverance, but solely by their awakening rank. Those with high ranks were almost guaranteed comfortable lives. Unfortunately, this reality did not apply to him. He was nothing more than a porter who carried supplies for awakeners, an unawakened man who had never once opened a status window in all 35 years of his life. As long as he remained unawakened, he would never escape this existence. When the porter turned around to report that he had finished looting the bodies, he was instead met with a horrifying sight. Every awakener lay dead, their bodies torn apart. Panic seized him as he tried to retreat, only to bump into someone behind him. A calm voice remarked that only one person remained alive. Standing before him was an SSS Rank monster known as Asmodeus. In desperation, the porter raised his small knife, but with a single motion, Asmodeus blasted his hand aside, sending him crashing to the ground in agony. Still, he refused to give up, though the difference in power was absolute. Asmodeus was far beyond him and drove an ability straight into his head, ending his life. As death closed in, the porter wondered if this was truly the end. He remembered his parents' tragic deaths, the endless bullying at school, and a lifetime of being ignored simply because he was unawakened. He thought of himself as a failure, yet even in his final moments, he wished to awaken. As his blood touched the sand, a single drop began to glow, transforming into multicolored light. The conditions for awakening were finally met, and his consciousness was pulled away toward a golden staircase where a mysterious being descended. Confused, the porter looked back and saw Asmodeus frozen in time. The being, surprised by his focus, explained that some called it a king and that it would grant him authority. Though wary, the porter listened as the king said he had been chosen for his will and tenacity, warning that this miracle would only happen once. Before the porter could ask more, the king told him to be patient and survive on his own using the key he had been given. A flash of light followed, and the porter awoke in a different place. Voices around him accused him of ignoring them until a sharp slap snapped him back to reality. Standing before him was Bei Hyuksu, the man responsible for years of misery. As Hyuksu demanded an answer, the porter, now known as Taehyun, remembered the king's words and opened his status window for the first time. He realized with shock that his body was 19 years old. He had regressed 16 years into the past. Laughing in disbelief, he was met with another threat, but this time he struck back, sending Hyuksu flying. With tears in his eyes, Taehyun declared that he was awakened. When Hyuksu's awakened friends attacked, Taehyun avoided their blows with ease, countered with precise strikes, and knocked them down one by one. For 35 years, Taehyun had lived as an unawakened man and had done everything possible to survive. He had trained his body, studied combat techniques, memorized information about the abyss and its monsters, and mastered hand-to-hand combat. There was no chance he would lose to opponents who lacked even basic fighting fundamentals. Using his refined skills, he defeated them again, this time decisively. As he stood over them, he noted calmly that he would need to rebuild his physical conditioning if he wanted a truly combat-ready body. Hyuksu slowly regained consciousness, convinced the situation was absurd. He believed Taehyun had simply gotten lucky and swore to cripple him permanently. Activating his stone skin ability, Hyuksu hardened his body and launched a punch with increased speed and power. Taehyun narrowly dodged the attacks, but he was caught off guard when Hyuksu leaped into the air and attempted a crushing blow that would have been fatal. When the dust cleared, Taehyun tried to counterattack from behind, only for Hyuksu to turn and harden his face, completely blocking the strike. Even while defending, Taehyun was sent crashing into the ground. Bleeding but still conscious as Hyuksu approached, he mocked Taehyun, claiming he had finally come to his senses and should understand that he was nothing more than unawakened trash. Hyuksu taunted him, asking whether he planned to run or attempt to fight using an awakened skill, if he even had one. Taehyun reflected on the system he knew. All awakeners possessed a rank and a skill, ranging from F rank, no different from a normal human, to S rank, where monstrous abilities emerged. Unfortunately, the skill he possessed was unknown, something he had never encountered even with his knowledge of the future, and worse, it was ranked F. Against Hyuksu's C rank ability, logic dictated he had no chance of victory. Yet strangely, Taehyun did not feel fear. For the first time, he felt certain that he would never lose again. A red aura began to seep into the surroundings, causing Hyuksu to falter in disbelief. Taehyun felt his body invigorated as mana surged through him for the first time. He realized this sensation was the power of predation. As Hyuksu charged once more, reinforcing his stone skin to end the fight in a single blow, Taehyun calmly raised his hand. A dark, unfamiliar entity manifested above them, and predation activated, slowly beginning to consume Hyuksu's hardened body. Taehyun removes his ability with even greater will put into it, eventually eating all of it as the rocks fall from Hyuku's body. Everyone in class just chats like normal and as if nothing has happened. But that's when the sky is colored in a dark red light from Taehyun's ability. After the dust clears, the results reveal themselves. Hyuksu was utterly defeated and is now on the ground. As a result of his successful predation, Taehyun's rank changes to E, and he also gains a new skill, the same one Hyuksu had, Stone Skin. After their squabble, Taehyun decides to drag all of the guys he beat back to the school infirmary. The school nurse was understandably shocked by how severely injured they all were. After the fight, Taehyun brought everyone to the school clinic, where the nurse used her healing abilities to treat their wounds. Taehyun lied about the cause, claiming they had fallen down the stairs. Though confused, the nurse chose not to question it further. Once treated, Taehyun was allowed to go home. He found the situation almost ironic. He had awakened and taken revenge on his childhood bully on the same day. Despite this, a serious concern remained. His skill, predation, had increased in rank after only one fight, something that should not have been possible. Though still classified as F rank, its power clearly exceeded even C rank skills, and it could steal abilities from defeated opponents. Taehyun questioned why the mysterious king had given him such power and why he had been forced to regress. While many questions remained unanswered, he knew his immediate priority was to learn how predation truly worked. When Taehyun returned home, he felt a sense of relief. After his parents' deaths, he had lived with his uncle, who had welcomed him warmly. Believing his uncle would return late, Taehyun planned to research skills similar to predation. However, as he walked through the house, he noticed 3 unfamiliar men standing over Jeong, his uncle's son. At first, he wondered why Jeong was not at school, but quickly realized the boy was taking his father's money. Taehyun remembered this behavior well. Jeong had done the same in the past to impress bullies, causing serious trouble for the family. It was unfortunate that everything had to happen on that very day. The leader of the bullies stood up, clearly surprised to see Young's cousin home so early. He wondered why Taehyun did not simply walk away, as he had never interfered before. They only intended to take what they came for and leave, so Taehyun should have acted like the unawakened porter he was and stayed out of it. Instead, Taehyun merely looked at him and smiled, seeing this as the perfect chance to test his power. Without warning, he punched the bully leader in the face and knocked him to the ground, shocking the others. Taehyun attempted to activate predation next, which visibly frightened the leader. However, the skill failed to activate, stating that its main function was inaccessible. While the bully was confused by Taehyun's behavior, Taehyun himself was even more surprised. Taking advantage of his hesitation, The leader struck him away and mocked him, before ordering a coordinated attack. One used bind, another poison, and the leader applied bleed. The three status effects hit Taehyun at once, flooding the building with light. Believing he had been exposed as a fake awakened, the leader mocked him for bringing this upon himself. However, the fight was not over. Predation reacted on its own, detecting the status effects and neutralizing them through an unknown force. The attacks were resisted entirely. Realizing something had gone wrong, the bullies were left stunned. Before they could respond, Taehyun activated Rock Skin, reinforced his fist, and struck the leader so hard that the floor shattered. After defeating them, Taehyun reflected on what he had learned. His status window had improved, revealing general information about awakened individuals. His mana had not been an issue, yet predation had failed earlier, suggesting conditions beyond mana were required. He also noted an undocumented passive effect that resisted abnormal status skills. Further field testing would be necessary.